Now does it work? Now it's better. I think I heard something, no? So there's a book called Chorev. There's a book called The 19 Letters. There's commentary on the Chumash, there's commentary on the Tehillim. Many, many books he wrote became classics, really. As you can see on the page, he 19th century. He fought against the reformers, who was big in Germany in that time. And he wasn't such a big Zionist. Zionism didn't exist yet. Herzl didn't live yet. He didn't come up with his plan of political Zionism. But he really was, as the leader of Orthodoxy, he really was in favor of separating off the community from the reformers. And but most importantly, he was a creative thinker and writer, and gave beautiful, beautiful explanations of Judaism to many of the people who were assimilating in Germany. Right, since the beginning of the Enlightenment, the beginning of the 19th century, a lot of people were leaving the fold, and his explanations are beautiful. Now, everything was in German. He wrote in German, everything in German, and it was translated into English, translated into Hebrew. I don't see any translations into Chinese yet, but one day maybe. And he was a great scholar, of course, at Talmud. He also knew philosophers, and he knew, he knew a lot. It's an interesting discussion what he was influenced by, how much he was influenced by the philosopher or not. But bottom line is, he was into a lot of etymology, study of the words, of the Hebrew words. The scholars and the academics were not so impressed. But now, 100 years later, people are looking at with another look, and maybe there's something to it. He liked to get to the bottom of the roots, of the Hebrew roots, and he gave all sorts of creative interpretations, sometimes not necessarily historically correct, but the main thing is the content of his teachings, and he gave over, because he connected it to the Hebrew words. It is very compelling, and it's very beautiful, and very meaningful. And here and there, the truth is, I started out from one. I knew he has this one commentary on this week's Parsha, actually last week's Parsha, but then also on this week's Parsha, and I wanted to bring that. But then once I got searching, I found a few others, and I figured let's have a class on Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's teachings about relationships. Perhaps there's 4 different teachings here. One you like more, one you like less. I like them all. I think we have something to learn from his insights here. Let's begin, if there's no other questions. Okay? Yeah?
Are there any extra copies?
No.
Okay.
But you can share. You can share. Not enough. Sorry. Okay. Hey, you're good? Okay. So it says in last week's Parsha, Yitzchak took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. We actually mentioned it in last week's class. Vaye'ehaveha. It's the first time, almost the first time, in the Torah that ahava is used. Definitely it's the first time between man and woman. Yitzchak loved Rivka, right? We talked about it a little bit. We mentioned now. This is significant. We said it's unique. Perhaps the love of Yitzchak Rivka is different from the love of Avram and Sarah. We're not going to repeat what we said last time. And here, a very, very traditional conservative, small c conservative, not conservative movement statement, he says as follows. Asher, will you read it for us?
Sure. In modern life, we would place he loved her first and right he loved Rebecca, he took her and she became his wife. But however important it is that love shall precede marriage, it is far more important that it shall continue after marriage. Modern attitude lays all the stress on romance before marriage. The older Jewish review emphasizes the lifelong devotion and affection after marriage.
Amazing, amazing. So what do we talk about? What do we all know about? What are we expecting? Love at first sight. Wow. I saw her and she knocked me off my feet. Or I saw him and I got knocked off my camel. Right? Rivka fell off the camel. Whoa. She was blown away. This is what we talk about, falling in love. Fall. Something you fall into also. The words are so telling how we speak about falling in love. When we speak about love, and again, I'm presenting Rav Shimshon Charles Hirsch's approach, which I agree with, but it's his emphasis that it's not really about you don't really fall in love, as we've been talking about. You grow in love, you build love, you develop love, you work on love. It's not something you fall into. It's not something that happens immediately either. It's a process. Now, there's a big debate, and hopefully my wife won't be watching this shir because we don't necessarily agree on this. Not sure, but some people will say, well, you can't get married until you love the woman that you're going to marry. And the other side of the opinion says, yes, you can, because love is something that's going to develop later on in life. All you have to look for is the potential for love, a seed, an inkling. But how can you expect to love somebody after just dating? Right? Nowadays, of course, you date, you live together for 10 years, then you say, okay, maybe we'll build a family, you get married. Right? This is in secular society. But we don't believe in that. So where on that? So even if you assume that love is a process, love is a growth process. It's a relationship that develops over time. It's something like a flower. You plant the seed and then it blossoms at some point. Where on that timeline do you? I won't use the language of pull the trigger. When do you pop the question? Right? When do you get married? Yeah, I shouldn't say that. Pull the trigger. No. So what's the right time? Right. So that's a good debate. That's a question. I think that's where I might be a little different than what my wife feels. She's a romantic, and so am I. Love is critical. We said before, it's so important. It's what marriage is all about, right? You have to love your neighbor like yourself. It doesn't mean your neighbor with the air conditioner is leaking on your lawn, it means your neighbor, meaning your friend, meaning your wife or your husband, and that's really where the love between people, between man and woman, should be, is at its height, at its highest, at its most intense, its most developed, and so love is the mitzvah. It's the essence of the mitzvah to get married. It's to have a loving relationship. When does it start? Well, when you get knocked off your camel. When does it? That's just the start. That's the beginning. How can you love somebody at first sight? You don't really know them. Love is not just an initial attraction. It's important to have a spark. It's important to have that beginning. Otherwise, it won't have a continuation if you don't have a beginning. But do you think you love your wife before you get married? The ideal situation, of course, is that you love your wife more each and every year. As you grow, you learn more about them. You have more common experiences together. You appreciate different sides as she grows and as you grow. Your perspective changes, her perspective changes, and that's the beauty of creating a relationship. But so, did I love my wife when I got married? Yes. I love her much more today. Much more, no question about it. Ideally, the romantics say, you should love your wife more every day. Okay. Every day, it's nice. But sometimes there's ups and downs. It's not a straight line, but ultimately we talk more about what love actually is, what it means. But there's some level of love which is always there. And so he points out that the first introduction of love between man and woman, Yitzchak and Rivka, what does it say? Vayivi'eha Yitzchak ha'ohel ha'asara imo. This is Yitzchak took Rivka, and she became Vatihilo leisha, and then Vaye'aveh. It says Vaye'aveh, he loved her after she became his wife. And this is what I said, small c conservative approach, is that all this stuff about the long dating and the love before you get married, how can you love somebody before you're married? You barely know them. Or in some societies they would have very little dating. But as long as you choose wisely, because you see there's some potential. I did temper this. If you remember, some people were with us last year. I had some classes on relationships. This is not the first time we're doing this series, but we said that Rabbi Akiva said there's a rule about dating. Who remembers what Rabbi Akiva's rule was? It's a halacha. Halacha l'maaseh. He says you're not allowed to get married unless you see her first. So it has to be at least one date. At least one date. You have to see her first. And you know what the rationale for that is? He says, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." What does he mean to say? Well, I'll tell you what I think it means. It doesn't mean that you have to love her in that one date. How are you going to love her? You meet her once. But there's some communities until today it's like that. One date, and then the parents arrange it, whatever. But they have to meet once. That's halacha from Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because of Avta l'reacha kamocha. Wait, how does meeting once before marriage? How does that fulfill the requirement of Avta l'reacha kamocha? The answer is it doesn't. When are you going to have the love? It's in the marriage. It's after you're married. It's when you grow together, when you live as husband and wife for years. B'ezrat Hashem, the love is going to come. So what are you going to get in the date? What do you need to have one date? Sometimes there's no spark. Sometimes there's no potential even. Sometimes you just you don't see that there's any potential. Physical attraction is part of the relationship between a husband and wife. And sometimes she's just not my type of thing, right? And so you don't try to put a square peg into a round circle, right? So that's why Rabbi Akiva says, when he says you have to meet, at least you have to see her at least once before you get married, it's not because you're going to fall in love in that one meeting, even if you do fall off your camel. It's because there has to be a potential there. You have to know after meeting that there's some kind of, what do we call it today? Chemistry, a spark, right? Some kind of chemistry. In chemistry, it doesn't mean you've already made up the concoction and you've done all the lab work and you've created the mixture, the
We need a kettle.
Serum.
Yeah, the serum. You haven't done it yet, but the ingredients are there. The ingredients are there. Love can flourish, and then it's up to you. And then it's up to you if you decide to go for it. You make it work. You work on it, and love will develop. So this is a famous quote from Rav Shimshon Hirsch. He writes in his commentary, the Torah says he made her his wife, and then he loved her. And I think he was reacting until to the flourishing secular Western world, which was talking more and more about love as even before you get married, which is not so traditional. Questions, comments, complaints, jokes. Yes, Renan.
There's a lot of questions about
He can talk, boys. He's married, okay? But not everybody is here, so be gentle.
Once I was talking with a friend, religion, so he said that the first thing is like in the Jewish order was like the beginning of the Menachem here in Israel. So I say that it's like first you get to know the person like a little bit and see if works together, like in a day, when you go to a date. So when you get married, and only after that comes love.
Who said this?
A friend of
A friend of yours.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like what Rav Hirsch is saying as well. You have to get to know them to see that there's a potential for love. Maybe there's a beginning of love. Love is a big word, but it's really, it's like saying red. Red. There's all the colors between pink and a little bit of rose, and then there's flaming red, and there's orange red. There's so many kinds of love as well. There's different stages of love, different types of love. So,
the point that they say, it's like if talk, if works together, if you have the same goals, if you have the same
good.
way of raising your children, the same way of living, and if
absolutely, much more important than actually waiting to fall in love.
Yeah.
Right. There's be a spark, but right, good.
Was very good.
Good. Yeah, good advice. It's true. Good advice. Good advice. So when you're dating, some of you are in the middle of dating, some of you guys are married, some of you guys are engaged. So let Hashem be married soon. To keep in mind, there's some people are debating whether or not to get married, especially guys. Guys get cold feet. You find the girl, have a good time, you see eye to eye, and but you say, I'm not in love. I'm not in love, and shouldn't there be more? Sometimes the girl says that. If Hirsch would say, don't have to be in love yet. How can you expect to be in love yet? You have to, that's something which will come out of years. You love your wife when you have a child together. Wow. You appreciate so much more who this woman is. As you go through life and you get to know them better, and you accomplish things together, and you experience things together, you see different sides. So the love grows, but a little bit, I think you have to have for sure, a little bit of potential. I think this is what Rabbi Akiva was telling us. You have to at least have one date. Nowadays it might mean 100 dates, whatever. It wasn't saying exactly, a number of specific dates. The culture was very different. The society was different. I don't suggest you get married after one date, but I don't suggest you get married only after you are, head over heels in love, as it's the expression is today. Many times that love, the word love there is used for infatuation, for being falling in love. What we said, right? You've fallen. That means you're irrational, only emotional. Love is much more, and that's what we're going to see next. What exactly does love mean in Rav Hirsch's words? I'll say he says it better than me. So let's go on to number 2. Okay. Number 2. Who's going to read for us? Perfect.
Love in Hebrew, ahav, as verb, and ahava as noun. The first time that the word love is used is when God commands Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, praying, please take your son, or your only son whom you love, Isaac. Ahava means to give, and refers to the active personality, meaning both to give oneself after another and to seek to draw the other exceedingly close to oneself. That is, to strive to attain the most intimate association with someone. The opposite of ahab is sana or sina, which means to be the thorn to fend off the other and keep him as far away from oneself as possible. These antonyms are polarized. For ahavam, another's presence is required. For sina, his complete removal is desired.
Very interesting etymology. There's a famous Michtav Eliyahu Dessler, who was a teacher in the Musar schools from Gateshead, England. No Brits here? I had a Brit for Shabbat. Yossi Strax. You remember him? Yeah? He's in the army now, but I had him for Shabbat. So we had one Brit.
Yeah, we don't want them colonizing everyone.
Oh, okay, yes. I'm from Canada. I'm from India. I know we all were once English. Yes, part of the Commonwealth. In any case, Rav Dessler says that there's an Aramaic word. We have some linguists here. An Aramaic word hav. What does hav mean in Aramaic? Who's studying Gemara? Habibi? That's not. I don't think so. There's the het. This is a hey. Havlan v'nivrich. No, who says Fardi here? How do you start a zimun? Havlan v'nivrich. What does hav mean? You say it, but you don't know what you're saying. Okay, more than that, more precisely though, the word hav means to give. And he says, you give to us permission. So you're asking permission to lead the services, to lead the bracha. So hav means to give in Aramaic, and he says ahava comes from that, similar to what he's saying here, but he says a lot more than that. He says it's ahava is the opposite of sin'ah. Sin'ah, where did Moshe see God for the first time? At Har Sinai, and even before it was called Har Sinai, where did he see God the first time?
In a bush.
In a bush. What was the bush called in Hebrew? What kind of bush? Sneh. The word sin'ah and sneh. So it's his interpretation. Again, I don't know if etymologically, historically, this is actually precise, but it's a beautiful idea. So sneh is thorns, pushes you away. Ahava is the opposite. It's to draw close. And so love, how do you draw close? When you give to someone. I don't know, I'm dating myself as somebody who grew up like in the 70s and 80s. Do you know what a Tamagotchi is?
Japan?
What is that? What is it? What is this? A little thing? What is it? You give. It's like a little pet. It's like an electronic pet, right? Digital pet that you have to. Your job is to keep it alive, right? You have to.
Nowadays we got this one.
Yeah. Keep it happy. Keep it fit. You have to take care of it. What a strange thing. Why do people do that? To have a toy that you have to give to. You have to give to. You have to give to. You don't get anything. What you get is you have a relationship. You have a relationship. I don't think it doesn't play music. What amusement is there? There's no surprises. There's no content. It's pure. What's the reward? The reward is the relationship itself. How do you create the relationship? By giving. By giving. It's fascinating. It's amazing. There's Rabbi Dessler speaks about it, how
I never think about someone watching that.
you enjoy you give. You give, you get. What you get is the relationship. How do you create the relationship? By giving. And the relationship is stronger the more you give. People get married nowadays and they make a checklist. Okay. Pluses and minuses. What am I going to give? What am I going to get? Okay, how much does she have in her bank account? Yeah. So, or her father-in-law, her father, right? If you start a marriage looking about how much you're going to get, you're setting yourself up for trouble. Now, I want to say, of course, you get out of a relationship. Of course, both parties have to receive. It's not only about giving. You're going to be receiving as well. But if you're looking for receiving, is the essence of what if you look at what you're going to get out of something, that's for a business deal, right? You invest in something. What's your return on investment? ROI, right? Obviously, that's the only way to look at things. But in a relationship, the way you're going to get your ROI is by giving. And you give, and you invest, and you receive, not in kind, not exactly the same. It's not a question that's so measurable, but the very relationship itself is created when you give to the other. And I know I have a little bit of sensitivity to this issue. There's some books on marriage that try to explain to men, how to be married, and they say, it's like a piggy bank. Piggy bank is, what do you call that? You save up in a coins, right? A savings, a little box where you put coins in over and over again. Do you say piggy bank in German? Yeah, people use that. It's a well-known concept. I shouldn't say it. We're Jews. I gotta talk about pig. Pushka. So that's different. Piggy bank's for yourself. It's box is to give to others. It's different. So the piggy bank is so you invest a little one coin, another coin. Ultimately, you get back and you open up smash the piggy bank. You have there's a hammer over there. Smash it. One day you're gonna smash that piggy bank and you're gonna have, whoa, I'm so rich. I have all these coins. And there are children here right now. Yeah. So of course that there is more return on your investment when you give a flower every day and you give a nice compliment every day. But if you're thinking in your mind that, okay, I'm saving up in my piggy bank, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's true. And giving one coin every day is much better than saving up, and once a year you give her a car. That's right. Let me just finish the point, then I'll take your question. But the point here, he says, and the example he brings is from Avram and Yitzchak, and this is the first time the Torah uses love, right? It says, "Kach na et bincha asher ahavta, et bincha tichincha asher ahavta." He refers to Yitzchak as, take your son, your firstborn, who you love. Love between father and son is a different kind of love, amazing, very beautiful and intense kind of love. I'm so happy on Friday. My son has been married a couple years. He called me up and he wanted to share something with me. He's going through something difficult. I felt so happy that he called me, first of all. I mean, obviously, he's going through something difficult. But we have a great relationship. So relationship between a son and a father and a son. What was Yitzchak giving? He's giving of his whole self. He's willing to give because his father asked him to. His father took him to the Akedah. Wow. And Avram was loving his son in a very strange way. We're not going to discuss the Akedah and why he was asked to bind. What we call it the binding of Isaac. La'akod means to bind. God never actually told him to kill him. But although that's the way he understood it, but Baruch Hashem, the angel came and stopped him with the knife in his hand, and he said, "Don't kill Yitzchak." And but the giving is an absolute giving, which brings you together. And as he says here, for ahava, another's presence is required. You're striving to attain the most intimate association with somebody, and sina is the opposite. Sina is the opposite. So, again, this is one attempt at giving an interpretation of ahava, and he does mention this giving as part of it, as a component of how it's created. But you're creating a bond, you're creating a relationship, and the opposite of sina. Yeah, who had a question here? Yes, Shushan. Yes, please. Yeah.
So it refers also to the relationship with Abraham and Hashem, and also with husband and wife. That it's also a brit kind of.
Yes.
So there is that back and forth. That
right.
I will do this, and you will do this, and we have a family, and also
right.
it's Abraham, and I will do this, and you will give me the land to the people. So there is some kind of back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good you remind me. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about brit, marriage as a covenant. And we asked what's the difference in a covenant and a contract. And someone who wasn't here now, but he then asked, where does our sources call marriage a brit? And I said, it's in the prophets somewhere. And I was surprised by the question. I looked it up afterwards. It says, Malachi, which we read from this week's Haftorah. We read only chapter 1, and part of 2. It's in chapter 2 in Malachi. If you're Sephardim, not Sephardim, Yemenites have a very they continued to read on Perek Bet. I think they actually read this passage where it talks about as your wife as Eshet Britecha, a woman who you have a brit with. So yes, a brit, marriage as a covenant is of course part of the relationship. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Let's see if we can do all 4 passages. We only have 10 more minutes, but we'll try. Number 3, who wants to read for us? Somebody else? Russell, please, go ahead.
Torah states that you shall love Hashem your God with all your heart, with all your animating spirit, and with all your me'od. This last term is unusual because me'od is typically...
What is the term?
Me'od.
How do you translate that usually?
Very much. A lot. Very.
Who reads the Shema in English? There's got to be some people here still reading Shema in English. No? Love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your... What does the Art Scroll say? With all your might.
Yeah.
Right. So it's B'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. Levavcha is heart, nafshecha is your soul, spirit, whatever, and me'odecha, usually we translate it as might. Might here, but let's say again. Resources, good. Me'od. So me'od is a strange word. Me'od is an adverb. Describes a way to do things. It's not your heart is something. It's an object, right? Your soul. It's a something. It's But me'od just doesn't fit, right? So what does he do with that? Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting. Please, Russell, go ahead. Yeah.
It's typically an adverb rather than a noun. Its full meaning is varied. Rabbi Hirsch writes.
Louder, please.
Rabbi Hirsch writes on that verse in Genesis that as a noun, me'od denotes the whole range of means and powers available to a person. In other words, material assets. When me'od is used as an adverb, the word that is modified is considered in its whole extent and impact, i.e. to the highest degree. The word me'od indicates that we should view the world not as an amalgamation of individual parts and moments, but rather as an integrated whole. It also suggests that we should view the ones we love as more than merely the sum of their parts, physical or otherwise. However, our sages in the commentary text Bereshit Rabbah add another layer of meaning to this term. They define me'od in a negative context as afflictions and the inclination towards misdeeds.
What a second before you continue. Where does this Bereshit Rabbah appear? It's in the first chapter of Bereshit. Where does it say Ma'od in the first chapter of Bereshit?
Tov me'od.
Yeah, where does it say Tov Ma'od? God created the world, and he saw, first thing he created is light, and he says, Va'elokim ki tov. The next thing he creates, and he says it's Tov. And the next thing he creates, Tov. 6th day, God saw everything that he created, V'hinei Tov me'od. It's the first time it's used. What is Tov me'od? So the sages say something really strange. You know what it means? That he saw everything and he saw Tov me'od? It actually refers to death. Me'od is similar to mot. Or it refers to sufferings. God had created the world, and you know what made it very good? Is that there was also bad. How is bad make something very good? So this is what Rav Hirsch is explaining. Okay, so go ahead.
Such phenomena appear to be afflictions, but the truth of the matter is that they bring us salvation. Through them, all the good in creation is revealed. Good, which is not merely good, but beyond. It is very good. It is pleasant for me to bear suffering today, provided that I am wiser for and ennobled by it in the future. It is pleasant for me to suffer for the good of the community, which shares my burden with me. Suffering is beloved to me during my 70 earthly years, which are but a drop from a bucket in the ocean of eternity that awaits me.
So he says our lives are richer when we can use the bad, incorporate it into a bigger picture. And so and he's learning out what is love from the other context, not the love between Abraham and Yitzchak, and not the love between Rivka and Yitzchak, but the love between man and God. Which we say every day. You should love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your me'od. What is me'od? Also, it's not just might. It's actually your weakness. With the good and the bad. Everything that happens. If you're able to incorporate the afflictions, the bad things, into your relationship, it's a much stronger relationship. I know that these walls are made out of cement. Strangely, they found recently, in the last 100 years, they found that the cement is stronger if you put some metal in it. Just the way it works, the binding, it makes the metal stronger, it makes the cement stronger. So somehow, the relationship is going to be stronger if there's some bad in it. Not that you're looking for the bad. It'll find you, don't worry. The afflictions happen. This is part of the world. Life is not perfect. There's death as part of the world. God created the world with life and death. That's what makes it tov me'od. It's even stronger when the love withstands the difficulties. Beautiful, beautiful insight into love. Right? So that's Rav Hirsch. One more. Can we do it? Just short. This is a little bit linguistic as well. Yeah, I don't know.
It reminds me of the German word Leidenschaft. It's like because of love and life need passion. And in German, Leiden is like suffering or affliction.
Leiden is affliction, and Leidenschaft is passion.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Love and a loving relationship. And
amazing to get this German drasha from a man who lived in China. No, he studied German. He studied German in school. Amazing. Thank you. Leidenschaft. Similar idea. Very good. Okay. So let's go on. One more, just to finish the page. And these are a little disjointed, but they're all different perspectives on Rav Hirsch that he wrote in his different writings. They're collected from the different books, mostly from the commentary on the Chumash, which you can get in Hebrew and you can get in English. We have it in the library, I believe, and in German, of course, the original. Okay, let's number 4. Who wants to read for us? Number 4.
I read it.
Okay.
So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters. Hebrew has no special.
This is the parsha, is it not? It was. 2 parshas ago, but they're all from Bereshit, except for the last one which we did about Vahavta. It's Hashem Elokecha. But the other examples, these are the parshat of love, guys. Right? Yeah. Some people would say we have to learn from the negative. Some broken homes, some brothers trying to kill each other. There's some difficult family dynamics going on. But definitely, it's appropriate parsha. Anyways, we're back to Lot and his sons-in-law. Where did they live? Sodom. Wow. Do you think they had the right relationships in Sodom? It's the example in Pirkei Avot of the wrong relationships. But we're going to learn something from it. Let's go ahead.
Hebrew has no special word for a relationship of a bride and a bridegroom to each other.
What is the word for a bride and a groom? Chatan and kala. What does chatan mean?
Singular.
Means son-in-law.
It means son-in-law. What does kala mean?
Daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law. That's the original meaning of chatan and kala. It means son-in-law and daughter-in-law, as it's quoted here. Genesis. You don't have the ibid, but it's in. It says chatanav lokchei v'notav. The person who married his daughters, they're called as chatanim. They're already married. They're not having a wedding now. The angels didn't come to Sodom when they were in the middle of a wedding. They've been married. They're already married. They're still called his chatanim. He has many chatanim. Who had a chatan? Not the bride. Lot had chatanim. Means he had sons-in-law. The word chatan means son-in-law, and the word kala It's later on in Vayikra. You're not allowed to sleep with your kala. What? What are you getting married for if you're not allowed to sleep with your kala? Kala doesn't mean bride. It doesn't mean bride. It means daughter-in-law. Can't sleep with your daughter-in-law. Right? That's one of the 36 prohibited relations. Karet relations. Karet, transgressions punishable by karet. So kala and chatan, he says there's no word in Hebrew for chatan and kala. This is a little bit the most radical of his statements, which you may not like nowadays, but he says this is telling us something. Why? Because when you're getting married, we focus on the bride and the groom. Special word. You're the center of the. You're in love. You love her. She loves you. You think it's about you and her? Please. Okay, who's reading? David, go ahead. Yeah.
So we use the words chassan and kala to describe the groom and his bride. Those words really mean son-in-law and daughter-in-law, and are just borrowed to describe a newly-viewed couple. Rabbi Hirsch explains that the basis for the most intimate and passionate affection that the bride and groom have for each other when they first get married has its roots not so much in what they are to each other at the times as what they are and remain to their mutual families. The Jewish bridegroom loves his bride, the Kala, so dearly, first of all, because in her he is bringing his family a daughter-in-law who will continue the traditions of his home. The Jewish bride loves her bridegroom, the Chassan, so dearly, first of all, because she finds him to be worthy son-in-law in the spirit of the parental home, and knows the satisfaction which parents have with his outlook on life and his laws. So that it is the mutual bond between the two families and the life goals shared between them, on which the rock-like foundation of the union of the children rests, and which is the glue that ultimately bonds the newly-wed couple together forever. This is why the Torah adds the term "who had married his daughters" as an amendment to sons-in-law when describing Lot's daughters' husbands. True, they had taken his daughters as their wives, but his sons-in-law, in the pure sense of the word, they had not become. No. For they were men of Sodom, and in their outlook of life and goals, there could not be mutual bond between them and Abraham's nephew.
So obviously, it's more complicated in real life. You don't marry a woman because of her family only, and sometimes her family might not even be Jewish, or your family, maybe she's not marrying you because of your family. Your family doesn't really have the same values that you do. So of course, it's more complicated. But the principle, what he's trying to say is that Chatan and Kala are called that because it's not just about your relationship. It's about the values. In the ancient world, the family, that's what he means to say, is that the family, where you came from, that's the repository of the values you stand for. That's what you want to continue. With your marriage, you want to find a way to continue the traditions and the values of your home, and the opposite as well. So, of course, in real life, we find our new values and we change our life path, and then, of course, your bride and groom will be loving each other and what you stand for, not necessarily what her family stands for, what his family stands for. But the concept is that you're not getting married just because of love, whether it's the love at first sight, or it's the attraction, or you could say the lust. But it's a marriage of ideals, of values, of where you're striving, what you're heading for, what you stand for, what you believe in. And that's what's represented by the families here. But what an amazing insight. There's no word for Chatan and Kala in Judaism. There's no word for bride and groom, because every marriage is connected to the wider perspective of the families. Families represent the values, and that's what he means to say, that it's not just about your attraction, but it's about you get married because you share a common goal and because common values that you want to propagate in the world and develop. We have to stop here. We ran out of time. I think it's beautiful insights, introduction to Rav Hirsch at the same time. And B'ezras Hashem, we'll talk more next week.